And if
And
I
then,
did, it was
yeah.
very temporary. It was very short term. So it was like blurred a little bit.
Hmm.
It wasn't like a solid line of a boundary, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
So when you say that, just to clarify what you said, the lines were kind of blurred when you try to demonstrate healthy. But okay, so let's just go back real quick. You said
mhm,
you really wasn't clear on what healthy boundaries were at first.
right,
Okay, but then you started trying to put healthy boundaries, unaware that that's what you were trying to do at the time, but you weren't holding folks to the healthy boundaries that you had put in place for yourself. So that's
right,
where we were kind of like teeter tottering, whichever way the wind blow. Octavia was just going to go and just not stand firm like a tree planted by that rivers of water. Okay. So is that
yes.
is that is that accurate?
That is very accurate.
Okay.
That is very
Okay.
accurate.
Okay.
Hmm.
Cool. 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 Now, thanks everyone, because I see we got some more folks coming into. I can't really see, all this light is in my eye. Looks like it's OS90 just joined. What's
What's
going
up?
on?
Okay.
How you doing? Thanks for showing up. So we're gonna jump right back into this thing so we don't get off track. Now, the next thing, so when we talked about those healthy boundaries, we just talked about and explained what that looked like and how, you just wasn't too sure about how to hold yourself to those things to help you out. Um,
Hmm.
we got into an area of your dad and your daughter. So let's talk about a little bit briefly about you not implementing healthy boundaries with your dad. And so when there weren't healthy boundaries with your father, what did that look like for you?
Ooh, it was like my front door was like the revolving door. Like
Okay.
I can just show up whenever I feel, well, not me, but he can show up or whomever can show up whenever they feel like it. It was like, I need you now. Put whatever you got to do on the side. And I'm like, I can't do that right now. You know, um, and in a sense, I did not know how to say that, or kind of even put that into play at that particular time. So it was almost like a growling match with. So,
Mm-hmm. Right, 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 right.
yeah. So once I started really putting up a pretty much an availability, like a sign, like
Okay,
when
stop
am I?
right there. Let's put a pin right there. We're moving a little too fast. I see you
Okay,
in your flow now. I apologize because I want to paint a picture for them and how this started out, how it was looking, and where we're, where you are now. So I just want to make sure we're
okay,
clear on that because you in a flow now. I love it. I love it. So I just want to reel you in just a tad bit. It's a tad. We gotta
yes,
shake them nerves off, and she ready. I'm
yes,
happy to see that though. So let's go back to dad. So you said your front door was like a revolving door to everyone, but we're specifically honing in on
yes,
daddy. And so
yes.
when daddy would need you, there was a little challenge. No, let's just keep it 100. You just never said no
Right.
because of who he is
Who
to
he
you.
is.
Right,
Right.
right. And so that was that part and how that showed up when it came to daddy, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so let's put a pin right there with daddy. Now let's get into your daughter. Oh, when you talk about your daughter, like I have no daughter, so to me it's like, oh, adorable, as my niece would always say,
Yes.
adorable. However, let's talk about what healthy boundaries, how there weren't any healthy boundaries, and when it came to your daughter, what did that look like when it came to your daughter?
Well, she's I want to say very needy. It was like, Ma. for everything. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm gonna need you to kind of lean on yourself, you know, depend on yourself to get the answers for yourself, you know, just trying to teach her, just trying to wean her off of me so
Mm-hmm.
much,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know. And it's because sometimes as the mama, we try to have the answers for everything. We
Right.
try to, you know, be there all the time for everything. And I kind of was like, okay, you're 18 now. You know, you're a graduate, thank God. You know, it's time to kind of take an initiative. And I almost had to remind her of her power. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because
So let's
it's
put a
like,
pin right there. Let's put a pin
okay,
right there. My apologies again.
no, no,
You
no, you're
in it,
fine.
you in it, and you in it. We just painting the picture out. So hold on, girl, hold on. She getting it in. And again, I am so glad that you are at this point because I can recall when we started our coaching session, it was a little challenging talking about some of these things because I was
Yeah.
coming at you and hitting you in the gut, but I also was doing it in a way that, you know, there I respected you all day, but you also respected what I was here to aid you in because there were times that there were some things we were going to talk about that I was going to be all up in your mix and it hit you in your gut a few times and it kept you quiet. You probably had one cuss me out too. You probably did under your breath. And I'm okay with that. Because I did say to you, listen, if you need to cuss me out a few times, I will
Yeah.
not take it personal. Because if that's what's sitting in you, let's go ahead and let that thing go. Because it didn't make any sense for you to harbor any of that if that's what you were feeling from whatever we were talking about. So going back to your daughter. So
Mm-hmm.
with your daughter, we also can talk about, I remember us talking about, pause, I'm getting ahead of myself. So again, this hi to everyone who just joined. Prior, I think that might be Carmelita, someone I grew up in my mom's church with. Yes, hey
Hey, girl.
Karma. So what I would like to also mention here is we're talking about dealing with the elephant in the room that's over nurturing. Here what we're doing, we're painting a picture and how this looked for Miss Octavia Cohen, who is the owner of Copper Cohen Jewelry, and she also has a nonprofit organization called, tell us that again.
Shades of Blue, alopecia awareness.
Good deal, good deal. Now let's go back to dad and your daughter. So when we would talk about that and we got into these areas with your dad and with your daughter, you know, just constantly pulling on you and pulling on you, we talked about there weren't any healthy boundaries. And that was something I also wanted to mention. A lot of times, well, where I come from, I ain't know nothing about no healthy boundaries. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say, you know, a lot of folks, a lot of black folk, we don't know about healthy boundaries. You know, at least where I came from, you know, what's yours is yours, what's mine is mine. Even if you say, you know, that's not mine, no, you can't have that. They might take it anyway. Or better
Mm-hmm.
yet, you showing up at my house unannounced, you know, things like that, you know. I wasn't aware of healthy boundaries at the time. And that is something that someone on here says, I have alopecia. This was a blessing for me to join today. Good deal. Good deal. Look at that. Wow. So that's something we also going to make sure we have on here, or we're going to make sure Octavia talks about her alopecia awareness nonprofit and also how you can connect with Octavia. Are you still selling those calendars?
Yes,
Alopecia
ma'am. I sure am.
calendars and a good deal, good deal. Now, jumping right back into where I was,
Mm-hmm.
we, a lot of us, at least for me, didn't know about healthy boundaries as yourself. Those things started showing up. But then when we got into another area outside of having healthy boundaries, we also went back to you and that over nurturing.
Yes.
Over nurturing. And what did that look like? Well, that's something that I addressed on my YouTube channel, Simply L, Raw and Uncut YouTube. And
Yeah.
on there, I addressed that was an elephant for me. I'm a nurturer to the core, just as yourself, Octavia, because we talked about
Mm-hmm.
that. And then we got into, you know, then I got into over nurturing with you, you unaware at the time until we got acquainted that that was something that I didn't realize that I was challenged with, and things that started showing up, and it shows up into, it shows up in different ways with different people. However, with your father and your daughter, when it came to over nurturing, I recall us saying, well, if you don't begin to implement healthy boundaries and you're always right there when they need you, or better yet, you always feel like you're always in fight or flight mode, that at any
Mhm.
given time they're going to need you. And so you're always at points, you were just always in the mix, even if they didn't invite you, because you always felt like you had to do it. So you
Yep.
see that conditioning right there that just was
Oh
coming.
yeah. That thing hit me in the gut just now.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
sometimes we forget, and you be like, ooh, and that's why I mentioned in my YouTube channel that it is imperative that we do those occasional self checks. Listen, my older three, 24, 25, and 20, yes, I
Yes, I
relocated.
relocated.
Little feedback. That's all right. Remember, I said Mercury retrograde is in shadow phase, so anything technology may go left or right, and we're gonna make it do what it do.
Yeah.
You still with me?
I'm here.
All right, cool. So what ends up happening is, ever so often you got to do those self checks with yourself. Am I over nurturing? Well, what is this looking like? Is this an over nurturing elephant that's showing up? Because a lot of times when there's over nurturing and we try to pull back from it,
Hmm.
well, if you're always making yourself available for folks and not putting up healthy boundaries, and you always in flight or fight mode, flight or fight mode, what do you think the universe is going to do? It is only going to keep creating situations to make you feel like you have to over nurture, creating situations that you feel like you always got to be in a flight or fight mode. So you're wearing yourself out.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
were you worn out every time you kept showing up, even if someone didn't need you to show up?
Yes. Yes. I felt like I was worn out. I felt like I was taken advantage of, being that dependable resource. I just felt like, yeah, I had to be there, even if I wasn't invited. Like that right there.
Right.
So it's like, okay, now if I wasn't invited, why am I giving away my energy so freely? It was just automatic, like clockwork.
Conditioned. You were
Yeah,
conditioned.
conditioned to
So
do
how
it. And
about
it just,
this?
mhm.
When we also talked about when we also got into what was that doing to you? If I can recall correctly, because of that over nurturing and not having healthy boundaries in fight or flight mode, that was creating migraines for you. Yeah.
Yes, it definitely did. It really
Hmm.
did. Yes, and at the time I couldn't really pinpoint what it was, aside from, of course, the triggers, the food, and all this other stuff. Um, that it had to do with not putting up those healthy boundaries. And once I started doing that, it started lessening. Um, it was still there, but not as intense as it
Mm-hmm.
was, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I kind of didn't really notice it until other people started saying, "Hey, you haven't been sick. You haven't been having migraines lately." And I hadn't really, because it's
Mm.
so regular. It's like we
Mm-hmm.
almost sleep together and wake up together and we like a shadow.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like I
Right.
really, really identified. I'm like, you know what? That's I noticed that. And so the more I started with the boundaries and sticking to it, and it did lessen, you know.
Okay, so since which brings us home to this point, you started talking about, we got into, hold on, girl, I'm shining a little bit, and Rachel, you flawless. I would like to be a little flawless myself, but that's all right though, because that means I ain't gonna wrinkle fast because I got the oil. Anyway, getting off topic, Gail. Um, However, when we talk about you just mentioned that we talked about the migraines. And I remember asking you to ask the questions, why are these migraines showing up? We found out that migraines was also tied into that flight or fight mode. And then why was those migraines also there? Because you were so worn out and depleted by giving yourself to everybody, even when they wasn't calling on you. You were still giving of
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And so, what did that also look like for you? That was migraines. That was also procrastination showed up. That's when procrastination was screaming because you were so worn out. Your head was just like through the roof throbbing that sometimes you couldn't even focus. And so, because of that, what did that do? That had you not given yourself to your work. Now, something I mentioned in my Simply L Raw and Uncut YouTube is something that was given to me when I relocated. But it's funny because I gave it to you and I was coaching you, but here it didn't land with me until I relocated. Crazy, right? How about that? But what it was is what was downloaded and given to me, which later given to me, but was given to me for you, which was, how about try seeing, well, how about this? You saw with your power, when you distribute your power to everybody else, you saw
Mm-hmm.
what your power can do for everybody else. But how about take your power, give it to yourself, and see what
Yes.
your power can do for you and how far it can take you.
Stay tuned for the final Simply L Raw and Uncut Live Part 3.